The Dyatlov Pass Incident, a mystery frozen in time. The wind howled across the northern Urals on the evening of January 23, 1959, as 10 young adventurers boarded a train in Sverdlovsk, their spirits high and their packs heavy with provisions. They were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, seasoned hikers embarking on what should have been a challenging but routine winter expedition. Their destination was Otorten, a mountain whose name in the language of the indigenous Mansi people meant "don't go there." None of them could have known that 9 would never return, and that their deaths would become one of the most enduring mysteries of the 20th century. The team. Leading the expedition was 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, a fifth-year engineering student with a methodical mind and extensive hiking experience. He had planned the route meticulously, aiming for the highest category of difficulty certification available in Soviet mountaineering. With him were 8 companions: Zinaida Kolmogorova, a witty and capable 22-year-old radio engineering student; Lyudmila Dubinina, 20, known for her love of dancing and hiking in equal measure; Rustem Slobodin, 23, whose guitar often provided entertainment around the campfire; Alexander Kolovatov, 24, a quiet and studious physics student; Yuri Yudin, 21, perhaps the luckiest man in Soviet Russia, though he wouldn't know it yet; Yuri Doroshenko, 21, a geology student with an easygoing nature; Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, 23, whose French surname hinted at his family's interesting history; and the eldest of the group, 37-year-old Semyon Zolotaryov, a veteran of World War II who had joined the expedition at the last minute and carried a camera everywhere. The 10th member was Yuri Yudin, who would make a decision that would save his life but haunt him for the next 54 years. The journey begins. The group traveled by train and then by truck to Vizhai, the last inhabited settlement before the wilderness. On January 27th, they began their trek on skis through the pristine snow-covered taiga. The photographs from their cameras, later recovered and developed, show a group of friends in high spirits, laughing as they struggled through deep snow, building storage shelters for food supplies they would collect on their return journey, posing playfully for the camera. But on January 28th, Yuri Yudin made the fateful decision to turn back. He was suffering from severe joint pain and sciatica, ailments that made the grueling journey unbearable. His friends saw him off with promises to meet again soon. He was the last person to see any of them alive. The remaining 9 pressed on. Their trail led them through dense forest, across frozen rivers, and up into the mountains where the trees thinned and the wind grew fierce. They were scheduled to send a telegram from Vizhai on their return no later than February 12th. When that date came and went with no word, there was initially no alarm. Delays were common on such expeditions. But as days stretched into weeks, families grew concerned. By February 20th, search parties were finally organized. The discovery. On February 26, 1959, search teams found the tent on the slopes of Holat-Syakhl, a mountain whose name in Mansi meant Dead Mountain. What they discovered made no sense. The tent was pitched on an exposed slope, partially buried by snow, but it was what had happened to the tent that chilled the searchers more than the sub-zero wind. It had been cut open from the inside, long slashes made by those who were sheltering within it, and then, impossibly, the occupants had fled into the brutal winter night. The scene told a story of sudden, desperate flight. Shoes were left behind, coats remained in the tent. In temperatures that would kill an exposed human in hours, 9 experienced mountaineers had abandoned the shelter they had worked to establish, cutting their way out in apparent panic, and fled down the slope toward the tree line over a mile away. The searchers followed the footprints in the snow, some left by bare feet, others left by feet clad only in socks. The prints showed no signs of struggle or pursuit. The hikers had simply walked, sometimes running, away from their tent and into their deaths. The bodies. The first two bodies were found on February 27th beneath a large cedar tree at the forest's edge, about a mile and a half from the tent. Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko lay near the remains of a small fire, wearing only their underwear. The bodies were frozen solid. Broken branches high up in the cedar tree suggested someone had climbed it, perhaps to look back toward the tent or to scan for danger. Their hands bore the signs of that desperate climb, skin torn and bloody. The next three bodies were discovered spread between the cedar tree and the tent, as if they had tried to return to shelter but succumbed to the cold. Igor Dyatlov was 300 meters from the cedar tree, frozen in a position that suggested he had been trying to crawl back to the tent. Zinaida Kolmogorova was 330 meters away from the cedar, and Rustem Slobodin was 480 meters from the cedar. All three showed signs of hypothermia. Slobodin had a small crack in his skull, but investigators determined it was not severe enough to have killed him. These 5 deaths, while tragic and mysterious, could perhaps be explained by some sudden event that drove them from their tent, an avalanche perhaps, or the threat of one. Hypothermia was a clear cause of death. But the cold had preserved more than just their bodies. It had preserved a mystery that was about to deepen considerably. The remaining 4 bodies were not found until May, when the deep snow finally melted. They were discovered in a ravine about 75 meters from the cedar tree, under 4 meters of snow near a small stream. What had happened to these 4 defied rational explanation. The Ravine 4. Lyudmila Dubinina, Alexander Kolevatov, Nikolai Thibault-Brignol, and Semyon Zolotaryov had made it farther than their comrades. They had apparently attempted to create shelter in the ravine, and they were better dressed than the others, wearing clothes that had been taken from the bodies of those who died first, a desperate but logical attempt to survive. But these 4 had not died from the cold. The autopsy reports were disturbing. Thibault-Brignol's skull was fractured with such force that the medical examiner compared it to the impact of a car crash. Lyudmila Dubinina and Zolotaryov had massive chest fractures, their ribs broken and chests crushed with what the examiner described as major force equivalent to that of a car crash, yet there were no soft tissue injuries, no bruises on the skin. It was as if they had been crushed by an enormous pressure from within or struck by something that left no external marks. Most disturbing of all, Lyudmila Dubinina was missing her tongue, eyes, part of her lips, and some facial tissue. Zolotaryov was missing his eyes as well. The medical examiner noted that these injuries could not have been caused by human force. Whatever had happened to them had been catastrophic and violent. Adding another layer to the mystery, some of the clothing recovered from the bodies was found to have elevated levels of radiation, not enough to be immediately dangerous, but enough to be notable and inexplicable.
The investigation. The Soviet investigation, led by prosecutor Lev Ivanov, attempted to piece together what had happened on that February night. The tent contained all the supplies and equipment the hikers would need: food, warm clothes, shoes, even Dyatlov's carefully maintained journal. The last entry was from January 31st. The investigators determined that whatever had driven the hikers from their tent had happened around nightfall or shortly after. The campfire by the cedar had burned for perhaps an hour or two before going out or being abandoned. The pattern of deaths suggested that those who died of hypothermia first had their clothes removed by the survivors, a grim but practical attempt to stay alive. But what had caused them to flee in the first place? The tent showed no signs of attack from outside. The footprints in the snow, preserved by the dry cold, showed no evidence of other people in the area. There were no animal tracks. The hikers had simply fled from something, cutting through their own tent to escape. Ivanov interviewed local Mansi people who reported seeing strange orange spheres in the sky around that time. Other hikers in the area, camping about 50 kilometers away, reported seeing similar lights. One group even photographed glowing objects in the night sky. Were these military tests, natural phenomena? The Soviet military did conduct operations in the area, but they denied any activity that night. Frustrated and facing pressure from above, Ivanov concluded his investigation in May 1959 with a phrase that would echo through decades. The hikers had died from a compelling natural force which they were unable to overcome. The case was closed. The area was sealed off to hikers and expeditions for the next 3 years. The true findings of the investigation were classified. Theories and speculation. In the decades since, the Dyatlov Pass Incident has generated countless theories, ranging from the plausible to the fantastic. Avalanche or snow slab. Some experts suggested that the hikers, experienced though they were, had pitched their tent on an unstable slope. A small avalanche or sliding snow slab might have struck the tent, causing them to cut their way out and flee to safety. The injuries to the ravine floor could have been caused by a second avalanche or by falling into the ravine, but this theory struggled to explain why the tent was still standing and only partially damaged, why the footprints showed no signs of panic initially, and why experienced hikers would camp on such a slope. Military testing. The region was used for Soviet military testing. Perhaps the hikers had stumbled into a weapons test, a parachute mine, a rocket gone astray, or experimental weapons. This could explain the strange lights, the massive trauma to some bodies, and the government's quick classification of the investigation files. But it didn't explain the radiation, the missing soft tissues, or why there was no evidence of such an event at the scene. Infrasound. A fascinating theory emerged in the 1990s, suggesting that wind passing over the mountain could create infrasound, low-frequency sound waves below the range of human hearing. Such waves can cause feelings of dread, panic, disorientation, and even physical symptoms. Perhaps infrasound drove the hikers into an irrational panic, causing them to flee their tent. This could explain the seemingly irrational behavior, but not the physical injuries. Paradoxical undressing and hypothermia. Some researchers pointed out that moderate to severe hypothermia can cause a phenomenon called paradoxical undressing, where victims feel extremely hot and remove their clothing. Terminal burrowing behavior might explain why some were found in the ravine, but this didn't account for the massive trauma injuries or the initial flight from the tent. Animal attack. Could a bear or other predator have attacked? But there were no animal tracks, no signs of attack on the tent, and no bites or claw marks on the bodies. The missing soft tissues from Dubinina and Zolotaryov were consistent with scavenging that occurred during the months the bodies lay undiscovered, particularly by small animals and natural decomposition in running water. Indigenous conflict. Some wondered if the group had violated Mansi sacred lands and been attacked, but the Mansi were peaceful people who had no history of such violence, and again, there was no evidence of other people at the scene. Something else. In the absence of satisfactory explanations, more exotic theories flourished: secret experiments, encounters with something unknown, deliberate government action to silence the hikers for reasons unknown. The classified files and official secrecy only fed such speculation. New evidence, old mystery. In 2019, 60 years after the incident, Russian authorities reopened the investigation. Using modern forensics and computer modeling, researchers proposed a new theory. A rare type of avalanche called a slab avalanche could have struck the tent hours after it was pitched. The delay explained why the tent was set up in the first place. The force explained the chest and skull fractures without external bruising. The pressure would have been distributed across the body. The hikers cut their way out to escape and fled downhill, knowing that staying near the tent in avalanche terrain was deadly. The modeling showed that such an avalanche was possible given the specific conditions that night. Separated from their shelter and supplies in deadly cold, hypothermia took the first 5. The other 4, seeking shelter in the ravine, were caught by a second, smaller slide or collapsed snowbank, causing their catastrophic injuries. This theory answered many questions, but it still struggled with certain details. Why was the tent only partially damaged and still standing? Why did some footprints show people walking calmly away? Why the radiation? Why did experienced hikers camp there in the first place? And, most troubling, if it was an avalanche, why did Prosecutor Ivanov, who was at the scene and examined the evidence firsthand, specifically rule out an avalanche in his initial investigation? The last survivor's burden. Yuri Yudin, the man who turned back due to illness, lived till 2013. For 54 years, he carried the burden of survival, visiting the graves of his friends, supporting the memorial at the pass that now bears Dyatlov's name, and speaking to researchers who continued to investigate. He examined every theory, hoped for every new lead. If I had a chance to ask God just one question, it would be, "What really happened to my friends that night?" he once said. He died never knowing the answer. The mountain remembers. Today, the Dyatlov Pass remains a destination for adventurers and mystery seekers. A memorial stands at the site of the tent. 9 graves in Yekaterinburg hold the remains of Igor Dyatlov's team. Their cameras, journals, and belongings are preserved in museums and archives. The photographs they took in their final days show young people full of life, joking and struggling through the snow, building shelters, smiling for the camera. The last photograph, slightly blurred, was taken by someone in the tent, pointing the camera at the tent entrance. Outside, darkness. What they saw or heard next drove them into that darkness and into history. Perhaps it was a rare natural event, a perfect storm of avalanche conditions, infrasound, and panic. Perhaps it was something else, military, unexplained, or simply lost to time. The Soviet files, declassified over the years, have provided more details but no definitive answers. Theories continue to evolve as new analytical methods become available. But the mountain knows. Kolotyakol, Dead Mountain, keeps its secrets locked in snow and stone and frozen time, where 9 young lives ended one February night in terror and mystery, leaving behind only questions that echo through the decades, like the wind that still howls across the northern Urals. And sometimes, late at night, those who study the case wonder, if we finally learned the truth, would we wish we hadn't?